Until just a decade ago, it bestrode the political stage. But the party which established the modern welfare state has endured a wretched year as old battles are refought and debates turn into bitter personal disputes. For now, there is a lull in the fighting. Labour's warring factions have paused for breath as they wait to hear if Jeremy Corbyn has won. It's not since the 1930s, when the pacifist George Lansbury drew adoring crowds, that Labour has been led by such an unlikely prime ministerial figure.
Three cheers for the international social democracy! Hip, hip, hooray!
But over 2 consecutive summers, Jeremy Corbyn has drawn similarly passionate crowds, prompting his admirers to say he is reshaping British politics. As the dust settles on this leadership contest, Corbyn supporters say it is now time to accept his authority if he wins.
I think it's going to be incredibly important that the Labour Party unites behind whoever wins. I hope and believe it will be Jeremy Corbyn. I do not approve of a decent 66-year-old man being mugged in broad daylight in cold blood by people who don't see that it's time for a change. Now, unity means listening on both sides, but I'm heartened by suggestions that people are already talking about coming back. There are, all sorts of potential olive branches on offer.
It's great to have an olive branch, but it can't just be a rhetorical olive branch. It has to be real. It's got to be backed up by action. The job of a leader is to stop bad things happening, not just to say, I'm not accountable or responsible for it. So it's about leading by example. It's about creating a culture where the leader's office and everybody around the leader and the PLP behave in a comradely way that shows we are a party of solidarity.
Labour has entered an uneasy truce. There are still deep doubts about Jeremy Corbyn among the 172 Labour MPs who voted in favour of a no-confidence motion in the early summer. Leading figures are saying he would have to mend his ways before they would agree to rejoin his front bench.
Well, we've got to change the approach and we've got to change the culture. And that is the first task for whoever is elected leader tomorrow. I resigned from the Shadow Cabinet because, not of policy differences, but because of a fundamental disagreement with a sort of approach that says that this is a battle, this is a war, and it must be won and dissenting voices must be silenced. I think a Shadow Cabinet can function and should function with policy disagreements. That's how you get the right answers. But a political party, a social movement, a Shadow Cabinet simply cannot survive if you refuse to hear dissenting voices and work as a team to try and resolve differences. Then it's not a Shadow Cabinet, it's quite simply just a fan club.
One critic says there are 2 sides to the Corbyn phenomenon.
Like any movement, it has a light side and a dark side. The challenge for the Labour Party is to harness that positive energy. It's fantastic that we have so many young people who've joined our party, but there's a darker side of the movement, which I think becomes more about a personality cult.
While Jeremy Corbyn will be able to establish some form of front bench, his opponents are not giving up. They are fighting to ensure Corbyn supporters cannot win control of the Labour machinery. It will be a battle between the heirs of Tony Benn, who wanted to increase the role of party members, and the custodians of Clause 1 of the Labour Party constitution. This stresses the importance of the Parliamentary Labour Party in seeking to form a government.
That being a test, can we get into government, certainly seems to have been accepted by the Jeremy Corbyn campaign this time round, and that's good. That is good news, because I think it is important that we become a movement and a social movement too, but our primary purpose is to get into government. That distinguishes us from NGOs or protest groups.
One former frontbencher says voters are switched off by internal battles.
We are stuck in an argument about how to wrest control of a machine without a real vision about what we want to do with it. There are real pressing debates going on in this country, and at the moment, because we're locked in this internal war, Labour just simply isn't thinking about them. We're not just failing to be an effective opposition, we're also failing to be an alternative to this Tory government. And frankly, it's unforgivable. The public will not forgive us unless we stop arguing with each other and start to look outwards to the country.
Some of Jeremy Corbyn's former comrades on the left believe the party is facing the worst crisis in its history.
Well, Jeremy, and I'm sure he would be the first to concede this, is no Tony Benn. But in addition, he never has attained, and I fear he won't, the stature of somebody who could be Prime Minister. We're facing the biggest crisis, I believe, that the party has faced, even compared with the Ramsay MacDonald defection, what was that, 80 years ago or so, and the crisis that followed the 1979 defeat and the breakaway by the Social Democratic Party and the defection of significant numbers of Labour members and leaders. This is more serious.
Corbyn's old friend Chris Mullin, who has not supported his leadership, believes that Corbyn has disproved the central thesis of Mullin's own landmark 1982 thriller. In a very British coup, the unseen state ensured that a left-wing Labour leader would fail.
It's not the unseen hand of the establishment that's seeking to undermine Labour. The establishment hardly need bother themselves at the moment because Labour's doing a pretty good job of it itself.
The contortions in the Labour Party are even causing alarm amongst Tories.
Of course, it looks at first sight as if it's to the advantage of one party if its main opponents are in a state of some disarray. But actually, my experience is that the government does a better job of governing if it's got an opposition that's keeping it on its toes. And I hope the Labour Party will, as I think it will, because it's a great party, eventually work its way back to a point where we're having a more sensible discussion again.
As the warring tribe gathers in Liverpool tonight, there is a growing realisation that Labour can ill afford a repeat of the last year and must push for at least some semblance of unity.
My message is, don't leave this party, don't quit it, and splitting it would be disastrous.
I think something very exciting has happened. I am one of hundreds of thousands of new members to the Labour Party in recent months. And I would like members of the PLP, many of whom have been in the party all their adult lives, to start feeling encouraged by that and not threatened by it. And hopefully we can bring all of these very exciting forces together and unite.
Tomorrow in Liverpool, Labour will clear up the pieces and embark on the next stage of its momentous journey. Nobody has any clue of the destination.